It's a beautiful 25 degrees Celsius here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily, your daily dose of sunshine. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayamakide. It's warm in Lagos, 26 degrees it is. And today, just so you are reminded, is the third day in the month of October 2025. It's the first Friday this quarter, just so you know.
I like the fact that you always remind us. Oh, well, Ayo, guess what has been happening in Abuja? So right now, during our discussions yesterday with Mr. Laolu Akonde, while he was taking a look at the president's speech, one of the things he did point out was that the speech seemed to be short on political commitment. I mean, constitutional amendments that are currently ongoing, electoral reforms. Just as not too long after he said that, or as if he knew that something along that line was going to come up. Yesterday, we saw a visit of the European Union Election Observation Follow-up Mission to Nigeria, visiting the INEC chairman. Well, they commended INEC for following up on some of the electoral reforms that have been proposed previously, but they're also asking the National Assembly to speed up the current reforms before them so that we can have it on time for the 2027 elections. Well, it was quite a meeting yesterday, and I think that it would do our viewers well to bring that particular report to them.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is hosting this delegation from the European Union Elections Observer Mission in Nigeria. This is one of the routine follow-up visits by the mission to get updates on the level of implementation of their previous recommendations after the last general elections.
What we are here to do is to look at the recommendations that flowed from the overall mission that were contained in the final report of the mission back in 2023. And we are very happy to see that there has been very significant progress against these recommendations, and we'll be looking forward to hearing what you have to report on the recommendations and the follow-up and implementation of those recommendations since 2023. There are specific areas that require legislative action that I've referred to in my opening comments, and we'd be delighted as a team to hear from you about what progress has been made and what concerns you have about obstacles in the future.
The European Election Observer Mission has made 23 recommendations after the 2023 general elections, with 8 specially directed at INEC for implementation.
The Commission has carefully considered all the 8 recommendations specifically addressed to us in your report. Action has been taken on aspects of the recommendations that only require administrative action to implement. Similarly, action is being taken on cross-cutting recommendations that require collective action between INEC and other bodies and stakeholders, while waiting for the conclusion of the ongoing legal review by the National Assembly on the recommendations that require legislative intervention.
The EU post-2023 general election recommendation is focusing on areas such as electoral administration, an inclusive and publicly accountable mechanism for selecting INEC commissioners and recs, more women representation, improving election technologies, among others. The delegation is hoping that a comprehensive implementation of the report will significantly raise the bar for the country's electoral credibility rating in 2027.
Also, there you have it. 23 recommendations made by the EU Electoral Observer Mission, 8 of them directed specifically at INEC, and INEC says they're already making progress. And the EU Observer Mission does commend them, saying that they too have witnessed some significant progress. However, of course, much more is expected of INEC and also of other actors within the electoral system. Ayo, your quick take on this visit by the EU Electoral Observer Mission.
I think it begins for me with ownership, among us as a people, ownership of the process. A good number of times when we talk about electoral reforms, we limit it to voting. And I think that we need some adjustment in that regard. I don't know if some of the issues, some of the thoughts in my head about this are covered in the 23 recommendations made by the EU team. But one of those things that a number of people have talked about, Mark, you can also have affirmed this, is that people have called for a kind of domestication, a kind of tweaking to whatever we call democracy that will make it homegrown, so to speak. That, you know, we have been attempting for several years to copy and paste, it would seem, the United States of America's template of what democracy is. We are still struggling, Mark, with whether or not the three-tier government, you know, is a thing in Nigeria. The federal government, state government, local government. There are lawyers, learned souls, who are still unsure, well, who are still making a position that we only have two tiers in the country. We only have federal government and state government, and the state government administers the government at the local levels and all. So whether or not that is something that happens in the US, I'm not very sure. But there is that argument. There's also the argument that some people are saying, look, the presidential system that we are practicing, we're not practicing it the way it ought to be practiced. Is that an issue of the law or an issue of our practice or our adjustment, our interpretation of what democracy is supposed to be? It goes back to what I said about us taking ownership of the entire process. And to take ownership, communication is at the heart of it. I'm not going to stop talking about communication because we don't even know how costly miscommunication or discommunication or inadequate communication is to us. 1/3 of about 15 to 20%, sometimes up to 30% of business losses in some cases is attributable to miscommunication or inadequate communication and all of that. But just imagine how much impact that is having on our national life. And guess what? We're not even seeing it as a thing. We have a Ministry of Information, which is amazing. But how do we communicate with the people? It's not just one thing for us to push out information to people. Do they understand? What's the feedback? And how do we handle their feedback, the people's feedback, at the various levels of government? We need to build trust in the system, and I'm not sure whether or not all of those recommendations, these thoughts, particularly of ownership, of trust, is covered in those EU recommendations. And if we can even legislate trust, is that possible?
And it's something that we can begin our conversation with our guest who is currently with us, joined us virtually. Mr. Ehi Brima is the publisher, editor-in-chief, Niger Times. He joins us via Zoom in Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Brima. Electoral reforms are currently on the front burner. People are hoping that it will get to the point where the president will actually make his own commitment, give his own commitment to delivering a free and credible process, an election that Nigerians can trust. What do you think needs to happen for us to be able to really have trust in the process of our electoral system?
Thank you very much, Malfoy, and thank you, Ayo. The electoral process has to be credible, has to be transparent. We know the issues we have with our elections, in recent past. Nigerians don't really trust what happens because, as far as they are concerned, the voters, there is not enough transparency. That's why you're having serious voter apathy. Now, what really needs to happen with the amendments that we need, the changes and reforms? They have to do with, one, electronic voting. I don't see why that is so difficult for us, to have, because it will improve transparency. It will prevent distortion through manual records, and then there'll be the results. The turnover time will be faster. So those are things that we'll need to look at. Why don't we have, then the independence of INEC is also very crucial. Political interference, we need to shield INEC as a body from politicians. They get to interfere with what happens, with the electoral body. Then security during elections, voter safety, prevention of violence. These are issues that we have had problems with people snatching ballot boxes. You have security men also sometimes, not doing the needful. In fairness to them, they're usually overwhelmed. Even when we have thousands and thousands of security men. But we need to do, a framework around security for elections in Nigeria. Then diaspora voting. Why don't we have Nigerians living abroad able to vote? They'll be clamoring for that, and that should be part of the reform that we expect to see before 2027. Nigerians living abroad should be able to vote, and they want to vote. Their votes should also
Mr.
count.
Brema, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt your thoughts, but on that particular issue, I spoke with a journalist of repute, and a journalist who has worked internationally. I had an interview with her earlier this year, and one of the issues which we raised was diaspora voting. And she says, she believes that it needs to be categorized into two groups. Nigerians who have lived in Nigeria a long time, but for some reason have now jackpot and moved abroad, and who can have who understand the political system in the country, understand what the issues are, and are able to, vote in that system. Separate from Nigerians, for instance, who were born abroad, who have spent almost all their lives abroad, perhaps have no attachment to Nigeria other than the fact that they are Nigerians because maybe their parents were Nigerians. But of course, still very proudly, are very, very proud of their heritage, but will not understand the political systems, will not understand what the issues are. Will it be fair to say that all of those Nigerians, the different categories of those Nigerians are eligible to vote or should be made eligible to vote without a thorough understanding of what the issues really are? Are you really sure that we have thought through this issue of diaspora voting and just how, it could actually tweak the outcomes of our electoral processes? I mean, because sometimes when we think about diaspora, I think oftentimes we think about our brethren in the West, we think about our brothers in Europe, in America, but we also forget that a lot of Africans, a lot of Nigerians are scattered in many countries in Africa. Are we going to deprive them of voting as well?
No, once you are voting age, no matter where you live, and regardless which part of the world, you should be eligible to vote, as long as you are voting age. Let me also tell you, Nigerians living abroad, we talk to them regularly from time to time. They are on top of the issues in Nigeria. They probably even get the news faster than some of us in Nigeria here. So they are concerned, they are bothered. Some of them want to return home. They do a lot of remittances to Nigeria. Most of them are really channeled to consumption. We need to give them a voice. They want to vote. You saw them the other time, was it early this year, when they had some states protests. Some of them, I think, was it UNIDO, Nigerians in diaspora organizations, NIDO. They said they want to vote. I saw them, with placards, I think in Abuja. They let us allow them to vote. We have a great number of Nigerians living both in Africa, outside of Nigeria and Africa, and the rest of the world.
Yeah, my point is that will be a small minority or perhaps a tiny representation of the true number of Nigerians we have abroad.
Now, why do you say that? We are talking of, once you are over 18 years, you should be able to vote. That's the point. Regardless of where you live, outside of Nigeria, you should be able to vote. We have millions and millions of Nigerians living outside of this country. Do you know, Malcolm, that 10 votes can make a lot of difference in an election? 10 votes. And we have millions of Nigerians living in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in the whole of Europe, everywhere, in the rest of Africa. So let them vote. That is my position. And they have been clamoring to vote, so they should be allowed to vote.
All right, then. Well, people will say that the issues in our elections, and the reason why it will seem that it's a do or die, the desperation we see attending our processes is because our elections are high stakes. We see how, over the years, it would not appear, part of the accusation that the political class have had to face is that they do not go there to serve. They go there to be served. And as such, a lot of people, when they do want to get into office, they want to get there by all means. And as such, the processes already seem skewed. It doesn't matter what reforms will be introduced. the intention that should go with it is usually not there. And so we're still not clear. INEC did come out to apologize about a glitch that, attended the 2023 elections. But some people will say, well, maybe. And when this matter was challenged in the Supreme Court, we found out that, that process which ought to have entrenched transparency through the BVAS, through the IREV, was not exactly recognized in our laws. So it would appear, in 2015 as well, we saw when INEC introduced the card reader, for a reform such as the card reader, for it to be able to scale through, it was not exactly put in our electoral process. It was just one of the, looking for the word now, one of the processes of INEC, one of its own, will I say, administrative things which it had put in place to make its own processes easy. So if INEC makes promises which are not entrenched in law, just to make the processes more transparent, at the end of the day, if INEC does not deliver on the promises that it makes, it is not bound by law to deliver on those things. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yes.
Do you think that we need a law to bind INEC to the promises that it makes so that there will be no jumps in the processes? Because the last time, the fact that the IREV did not work was very disappointing for a lot of Nigerians.
You're talking about a legal framework, to make some of these reforms binding. I agree with you absolutely. You talked about IREV. We have BVAS. We're talking about electronic voting. We're talking about diaspora voting. We're talking about security, during elections. And of course, the independence of INEC. All of these issues have to do with the reforms that we are seeking. And there should be a legal framework, to make them, for Nigerians to really now believe that the electoral process will be transparent, will be credible and acceptable. So let INEC, you talked about a visit they received yesterday and the recommendations, that the EU group made. It's targeted at INEC. Let them, before 2027, I believe if we are really serious about these changes, about these reforms, and making them legally binding, it is possible to do that, even within the next 6 months, if our lawmakers are ready. So INEC needs to fire the first shot. They need to embrace the idea that Nigerians want these reforms, and it will help INEC, as the electoral umpire. Why can't we have electronic voting? These days, we practically do everything with our phones. Why can't I vote early in an election? Why do we have to shut down the economy? Ask people to sit at home because we want to have an election, hold an election. Even if you are holding local government elections, Nigerians are asked to stay at home, that there's no movement. I think that is, we're not doing the economy any good, People, we can have voting over a period. Like when it's convenient for you to go and vote. You can vote on your phone, you can use your desktop, computer system, any device to vote electronically. So Nigerians abroad, they don't have to come here before they vote. These things are possible. We have professional bodies who do electronic voting locally here. So why can't we, maybe the challenges will be that of logistics or with that of officials, even including the INEC officials who want to compromise the system, the entire process. Yes, those fears will be there. But let the laws be there, and then we know that if there are breaches, we know how to take them from there.
Well, this entire conversation was supposed to be more than elections, so I'll take it to Ayo. Ayo, I'm sure you have other areas you want to take up Mr. Brimer on.
Well, most certainly, Mark. Thank you. Well, Mr. Brimer, you are not unaware of some insecurity issues that have also arisen in recent time, particularly concerning one of our professional colleagues who recently just passed latest information about the whole idea, suggested that according to the FCT police commissioner, the robbers, went into her compound, into the building, and she, took action in panic and jumping from quite a length of place. And that's not the only situation we have heard. We have also heard, of course, that jumping was induced by the fact that she received visits from armed robbers. That shouldn't have happened if security was as tight as it should be. Now, Somi's case, personal, tragic, it echoes even wider patterns of violence, state fragility, and community vulnerability. The one in Kwara State, in a fellowed local government, where official reports note that at least 12 forest guards were killed, is one. Another one that happened, a policeman named Ezra John, attached to the Lide division in Patigi, was abducted while returning from duty, and a number of other situations like that. Is this, for you, a rising wave of insecurity, or maybe because we are lagging in certain areas that we had previously tightened, or you think this is something that's always been there, it's just been latent?
Well, I think the issue of Somi's death, it was a personal tragedy. I didn't know Somi Maduagu, but I used to, listen to her reports or stories on TV, when she anchored programs. I did a tribute to honor her memory, which was published in several media platforms. And I was just asking who will save us from marauding and bloodthirsty gangsters. That was how I titled it, to honor her memory. And the question is, are we really safe? Who will save us from these marauders, armed robbers, kidnappers, bandits? Who will save us from them? Because the security situation, in spite of their best efforts, I'm talking about our security agencies, the security situation is still very bad. Today, you are hearing stories of non-gunmen kidnapping people. And then the roads too that are bad are not also helping the situation. My folks traveled last Saturday to Delta State from Lagos. From Benin, Lagos to Benin, then to Saple and to Ughelli. The roads are horrible. I really need to use the opportunity to draw the attention of the Honorable Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, to please focus on some of these bad roads. That is a busy road. Now, to go back to Somi's case, the insecurity is still getting out of hand. And I just said that every day we are reading reports about how people are kidnapped, about invasion of communities by gunmen. And then when you see a group of armed robbers, and these days they have access to all kinds of ammunitions, terrorizing residents, in a block of apartments, I think it was the fear that made Somi to jump, from that floor. And maybe she would have been alive today, just maybe, So the wider issue is that of insecurity, fear of the unknown. And the fact that it happened in that block of apartment does not mean it will not happen again tomorrow. I just pray that those robbers are apprehended and the face is brought to justice, because Somi's death should not just go in vain. But it's a reminder of how things are cut short. Somi could have lived abroad. I mean, she's a British citizen. She was a British citizen. And about some of our, Nigerians who would like to come back to Nigeria, and then suddenly, their dreams are cut short. It can be a very sad reminder of the fact that how safe can we be, when our diaspora Nigerians return home. It's a painful death, I must confess. It was heartbreaking for me personally. And then for the entire Arise News family and indeed Nigerians, a lot of tributes have come. But as I also noted in my article, those tributes, they don't go far enough. We need to protect the lives and property of Nigerians.
Just one leg of it. But there are some things that are just not going to go away. And the fact that even state governments are now being called out by the people, the unfortunate recourse of citizens to ask for the federal government intervention when there is some measure of insecurity in their state is a little concerning. We listened recently, I think, to the governor of Nasarawa State, Governor Sule, who was saying, look, governors should brace up, that they have a lot more resources now to be able to protect and secure their people, and that there are no more excuses because now they have a lot more resources to play with. How do you perceive that statement from the governor, from Governor Sule? What do you make of it? Do you think it's realistic, or it's just one of those statements politicians make? Can you hear me, Mr. Brahma?
Yeah, the statement by, it's. I can hear you. Can you hear me too?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Are you hearing me? I can hear you. All right. Okay. The position of Sule is, is something we can look at. Yes, state governments are receiving more money. It is true. Now, it brings us back to the point of this argument about state policing. Do we need state police? I think most of the state governors are in support of us having state police. So, but I don't know what is delaying the process. But you will find different vigilante groups in this state trying to support the security architecture that we currently have. Because whether we like it or not, the police is under-equipped and underfunded. I don't know why it is so. So that is why they're getting support from, like Lagos State government many years back, set up the Lagos State Security Trust Fund. And they have this arrangement, with the Lagos State Police Command, to collaborate, to tackle issues of insecurity. And Lagos has been relatively very safe over the years. And I think many states have adopted that model. So with more money and with private sector collaboration, we can enhance, the value of providing the security network, for citizens in each state. Let the governors do more, as Mr. President has asked them to do. They should wear the grass more. And security is one area. If state police means also devolves into community policing, because neighborhood security arrangements is becoming very prominent, because these are people who know everybody, around. So that is something we need to focus on immediately, because when you bring somebody from Lagos State, for example, to be a communal police in Akwa Ibom State, it's something we need to really run away from. That's just an example. The locals know themselves better. From community to community, they know those who are criminals, they know those who are good people, if you know what I mean. I use that in the context of this conversation. So let us do more in the area of security, and state policing is something we can also look at. And I think Mr. President is in support. More than 30 governors, I think, are in support. So what is delaying the move? But the fear of some people, and I think those fears are also genuine, is that with elections, state policing can be politicized. The people can be recruited, to do the unimaginable things for the sitting governor, the incumbent governor, so that they will retain their positions at all costs, even if it means eliminating opponents using state police. So those are genuine fears, and they have to be addressed. So I want to appeal to our security agencies that we need to really do more to protect the lives of Nigerian citizens, protect property, and safety should be not only in the homes, in our workplaces, but even on the road. The roads are largely unsafe. But we had some friends traveling from Benue to Lagos the other day. They left Benin at past 8 in the morning. They got to Lagos at about 9 p.m. At Okada area, there was no movement for over 4 hours.
Quick issue before we move, if you can hear me. And then my sincere apologies, Mr. Brimer, if you can hear me. Just one quick issue, because there are so many issues I would have loved to take up with you, but our time is fast spent. Now, with the Dangote Pengassan or Dangote and other oil workers issue seemingly laid to rest, do you think it's time for us to dance, or you think there are still maybe some latent issues that could spring up anytime soon?
Personally, I'm unimpressed with the way these groups, whether it's Pengassan, Dapman, Nupeng, they are just ganging up against Dangote refinery. Why shut down the economy because you don't agree with what the Dangote management, the decision they made regarding some workers? instead of sitting down with Dangote management to resolve the issues of the 800 workers, they actually went on strike, shutting gas supplies, crude supplies to Dangote refinery. They beg a very big threat to energy security in this country. I don't know why it is a good thing the federal government intervened in the matter, and TUC, they are saying they only suspended the strike. They did not even sign any communique. Well, that is strange. I believe we're all Nigerians to start with. We need to protect assets that we have. A man cannot invest over $20 billion in a refinery, the largest single-trade refinery in the world, and we are messing him up the way we're doing. It didn't start today. The sabotage, for me, I call it economic sabotage. Let them come together as a consortium, invite investors, and take over our refineries. The refineries that have not worked in decades, what did they do about those refineries? They are more interested in importing substandard petrol into Nigeria. And we have a man who has invested heavily in Nigeria. A lot of countries will be happy to have Dangote in their country. So I'm not impressed. Let them really borrow some sense and stop this nonsense that they're doing by ganging up against Dangote in the name of unionization. I don't think it makes any sense, because the fundamental issue there is the biggest, is a threat to our energy security in Nigeria. We've not had petrol queues for a very long time, but we all know how these things, play out.
Well, it's always a lot of issues, always a lot of sentiments always at play. My apologies, Mr. Brahma. Always a lot of sentiments at play about this. And it usually depends on whose side anyone is looking at this issue. But we have to thank you so much for your time this morning and your thoughts as well. Brahma is publisher, editor-in-chief of Niger Times. Thank you again for your thoughts.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, Mark. It's been my pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Indeed, we're still keeping the focus on security, and Ayo and Mr. Brahma did broach the issue of state police. But now we're also looking at what is possible with our military. We're being joined by Honorable David Ogewu, who is a member representing Oju Obi Federal Constituency in Benue State. He's also the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Army. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable.
Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, and I think it'll still be okay to say Happy Independence Day celebrations.
Yeah, we are still in the mood of independence. Yeah, so we are still celebrating.
Even though this mood seems to be quite quiet this season, it wasn't a very loud celebration. Even in some states, yes, took it a notch up, but at the federal level, it seems to have been pretty quiet.
Because we are in a time of reforms, and so many reforms are ongoing. So some of these things will be coming. Of course, reforms generally comes with their own challenges, and the most important thing is looking at what is before us. Is it going to be of benefit to our country and then the citizens here unborn? That is the major concern. I think we are heading towards the right direction.
Well, security is one area that continues to bother a lot of people. And when you look at what the president had to say about security, he didn't say a lot. I mean, it was just a little paragraph on the issue of security, saying that we're working diligently to enhance national security, ensuring our economy experiences improved growth and performance. He urges us to celebrate the gallantry of our troops. And then he also says that peace has returned to hundreds of liberated communities in Northwest and Northeast, and thousands of our people have returned safely to their homes. But in recent times, the North Central region has been pretty troubled. I mean, you are from Benue State. I don't think we need to remind us what happened in Yelwata, what is still happening in some areas in Benue, some low-level conflict, which is still taking lives, but is not as loud as what happened in Yelwata. So as somebody who is the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on the Army, what exactly do you think we're lacking? What are the lapses that we're still witnessing that is still leading to the death of our people?
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful and very important question. And then to be here, I want to first of all say that I need to commend Mr. President with the Renew Hope agenda. As soon as he came into the office, was sworn, he swung into action. And then also the National Assembly, we also didn't relax. The Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, our able speaker, who is People's Speaker, and the 10th Assembly, we tag it as People's House. We also swing into action. And then privilege, I was made the deputy chairman, House Committee on Army. And I can tell you without waste of time, we swing into action by inviting all the service chiefs. As soon as Mr. President constitutes the security heads, we invited them for an interaction to know what are the challenges, and they spoke to us. And then also in our various committees, without wasting of time, we swing into oversight to really go and see things for ourselves. And in some of this oversight, we saw a lot of things, the welfare of these gallant troops, their families, the care, these are things that were not okay. And then as soon as we came back, we put the report together and tabled it before the House. And then we had to intimate our president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who said, oh, we can't delay, and immediately brought before us a supplementary budget that, in fact, half of it, or more than half of it, went to security immediately. And that is the result we have had. The result of, not having explosive the way it used to occur. And also the roads that we can't even pass before. For instance, Abuja to Kaduna, you barely pass through that or use that road even daytime without being kidnapped or harassed. But today, you can even pass there at night. These were some of the things. And then some of these terrorists will also take to corner. Security also discussion are not things that we usually place on the public domain in details. We tend to manage them. There are some things you just keep and then work with them so that the enemies will not get to your plan to sabotage whatever is going on. Coming to my various states, of course, every security situation in every area has peculiar nature. Now, peculiar nature in the sense that sometimes we fail to also look at the root causes of this insecurity. And when it is not tackled, you are bound to have some of these problems. You will recall that in Benue State, what happened in Yelwata was really something that was heartbroken. We're all not happy. And then Mr. President came to condole with us. He made some very valid suggestions to us as stakeholders. And one of it was for us to sit round table and to look into it, because security is everyone's business. There are measures like both kinetic and non-kinetic. And when this is not explored, I can tell you that you will not get the desired result. And after he was about to, he said, find time, the governor and all the stakeholders in the National Assembly, sit down and then look at these things because of what he has seen and what he has heard, so that this should be put behind us. But I can tell you that much has not been done in regarding that. And also,
much has not been done regarding that?
Regarding having some of these meetings to discuss on the round table. Because these kinetic measures are very, very, non-kinetic are very, very essential and very important. In fact, it's the first stage to use in tackling insecurity.
Well, excuse me, I want to take you up on that issue of non-kinetic, especially since you've spoken about your state directly. In your state, part of what we heard after the Yelwata incident is that part of it was political. Can you confirm that?
Well, I won't say generally it's political. Now, for instance, in my federal constituency, we don't have such issues. What did I do? It was very simple. When these things, we saw some of this intelligence coming, I went back home, called my youth, some of the elders, the traditional rulers, the clergy, and I told them, this is our land. No one must invade this land. If for any reason you find any strange person in this community, please alert us. And then I went further to take motions in the House to grant us a forward operation base. And that was granted, and then that was stationed. And I told them, as soon as you get these informations, let me know. We tell the officers on ground to swing into action. And that has kept Ojuobi Federal constituency in peace. You will never hear of this because we are working together. So this non-kinetic measure is the first thing to do.
So why is it so difficult to achieve it in other parts of Benue?
That is one thing, that we all have to speak to ourselves, and we keep speaking. And I believe, this time, I think they might call for such meeting, and then our opinions also will be counted on.
Who is the day that will call for such meeting?
Of course, we are all the stakeholders. Of course, the governor of the state, we have to extend, some of this invitation. And then also, God, so merciful to us, we have the Secretary of the Federation, Senator George Akume, also himself. And then with the whole of us in the National Assembly, we sit down and with some of these, our elderly people in the state, I believe so much well that we can get to the root of some of these things, because there is no criminal that will come to your house without an insider. It's not possible. No one can come here to, just as we are in this studio, no one can come here and access this studio easily and know the nooks and crannies of this studio without an insider. There must be someone who is leading them. So, and I always said, in tackling insecurity, I tell people that care to listen, there are some very strong stakeholders we don't need to play with. And I put it across to them anytime I'm speaking. One, the clergy, being a Muslim or a Christian. Some of these people go to church, they go to mosque. There is no clergy that will say he doesn't know his congregation. The traditional rulers, there is no traditional ruler that will say that he does not know his children. And then some of these our fathers. So there must be a way out of all these things if we sit on a round table. And this is very essential and very important.
Well, I know that Ayo has questions for you as well. Ayo, over to you.
One of the things that I sometimes struggle to live with, sometimes struggle to understand, is whether or not indeed in all of our security planning, security strategizing, we have a focus for the people. It was in 2019, I remember, that the NSA at the time said that government was tweaking the the security architecture, the security policy of states from state-centric to citizen-centric security. I'm wondering how you think we are fared or we are faring in that regard. Because if memory serves me right, the police should be the lead agency, lead security agency in a democracy, in a civil rule such as we have now. In your opinion, from the vantage position that you sit, do you see us doing that? Do you see us having or practicing citizen-centric as opposed to state-centric security?
Okay, Ayo, we lost you for a bit, so I need to take your question again. You were saying something about the police.
Okay. Well, can you hear me now, Honorable? Well, I just want to confirm if the Honorable can hear me, Mokwe.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
just
wonderful.
That we lost you, yeah.
Okay, so if you can hear me now, yes, it's okay. If you can hear me now, the question that I'm asking is, it was in 2019, I recall, that the government of the day said that they are shifting from state-centric security to citizen-centric security. From my understanding, that inferred that the police will play more leadership role or a more leading role in the security and welfare exercises and all of that that the state would be putting in place. Do you see us doing that? Do you see us being more citizen-centric in our security as opposed to being state-centric?
Yes, in this dispensation, this very government that we all are in is part of what, in fact, the president has been, clamoring upon and ensuring that enough fund goes to the state. I always mention this. There is no government we've had in place since the return of democracy that have ever, given to state the kind of allocations they get every month. No government. And then this involve or include the security votes. Now, the only way this can happen very well is when these funds are used judiciously. For instance, I always use also my federal constituency as an example. in the last programs I heard from the 1st of September to 6th of September, on the 3rd of September, we had a security summit. This cut across all my stakeholders. Of course, it cost. Security is expensive. You know, in taking care of it, it cost me a lot. But I had to do it for the safety of my people. And then we come together, had the security heads comes together, we discuss way forward, and lot was said, and resolutions were taken, which we are implementing now, ahead of times, because you don't wait. So every state ought to do this. And then in speaking in aspect of, oh, police should be the one in the lead in some of these, no one is disputing that. But I can assure you there is need for these security agencies to have this synergy. Without that synergy, without the kind of insecurity problem this government, present government inherited, or from the time past, look, it will not be possible. Now let's look at the security, the police, the police capacity as it's constituted today. I mean the manpower. What is their manpower? It's one question we should ask ourselves. When we even go to the army, what is their manpower? You will discover that we even need more of it. So if we don't have them have this synergy together, we will not be able to overcome this. It's a guerrilla warfare, as a matter of fact.
Well,
be able to overcome
it sounds
them.
to me, Honorable, that you're saying essentially that the states, from some of the things you said earlier, that given the challenges and limitations of the security apparatus that we have, that the states ought to do more. Now, one of the arguments that have been put forward is that the states do not control the police, the states do not control the army, the states do not control any security apparatus. And even the attempts by various regions to come up with their own security, peculiar security infrastructure have been frustrated. What really, in your opinion, can the states do now when they do not control these security agencies?
My brother, I will disagree with you when you say they are not in control.
Are they in control?
Every governor, yes, every governor of a state is the chief security of that state. As a matter of fact, do you know if the president is to visit a state, they have to send, you know, that signal to the state government. What is that signal about? To tell, oh, these are the situations, these are the situations. This tells you that they are in charge. Now, when we speak about...
But they have argued, my apologies, Honorable, they have argued that they sometimes, particularly if they are in opposing political parties, that sometimes security instructions can come to the police or to the soldiers in those environments, in whatever state there is, and overrule whatever the governor says. Is that correct?
Well, I have never had that. I've not seen a governor that have come up to say that to my hearing, but I can tell you that this particular government, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has given that free operation to every state governor. And also, you can also attest to it. Look at some of the opposition governors today. Look at how they are working in their state. And some of them are saying it openly, even on media, that they praise the president for giving them that free hand and giving them this such amount of funds that they are accessing today to be able to develop their state. They are saying it without hiding it. So how will an opposition governor maybe go somewhere to say a different thing? So I disagree with you, my brother. I can tell you that if it has happened before, that was before, but in this government, it's not happening. They have all the free dealings, even with the security chiefs back in Abuja, and then to their various states. Most of them even request for some of these heads of security in their various states, to the best of my knowledge. And they discuss, and you see some of them, also not to say much, some advice have been given by some of these heads, even in their states. How well did they hit to it? It's another question. And then when they are saying they are deprived, maybe trying to set up their own security outfit. Another question we need to ask ourselves, what is the motive behind it? What is the motive behind it? I mean, the National Assembly, so many people are speaking about state police and all of it. And then we ask ourselves, if with some of what some of these our state leaders are the way they are operating, and then they are being authorized to have these state police, are you sure some people can even access the state? It's one big question. But you can't generalize it because some of them are doing very well. So in the National Assembly also, we are looking at, okay, how do we checkmate? What do we put in place to make sure that this works, so that no one abused whatever is being put in place at the end of the day? So these are some of the challenges that are also confronting us as even lawmakers. We are ready to do our best and for the country to be in that safety that will bring development and growth to our people and for us to be happy as a nation.
So let me quickly ask you, as we round off now, what are some of the quick things that you think can be done? First, in the current situation that we're in, what are some of the things that you would like to see? And even as the National Assembly resumes next week, what are some of the issues that you hope will come up first in some of the things that you people are going to be discussing and legislating upon?
Of course, as we resume, we are still going to have the usual briefing we usually have with the security chiefs. And then from there, it will inform us the next thing to do and to plan for the next budget, what is needed to be added, what is needed to be done. And then from some of us, from our perspective, some of the movement, the oversight we've had, we'll be able to make various input. Already before us, there are some bills, to enhance security operations in the country. And we'll look at them deeply to make sure that this is taken care of in due time as we resume.
Okay. Well, Honorable, I wish we had a little more time. We would have asked you some more questions, but we have to thank you for speaking with us this morning. Honorable David Ogewu is the member representing Ojuobi Federal Constituency in Benue State, and is also the Deputy Chairman, House Committee on the Army. Thank you once more.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's where we wrap up today's edition of Sunrise City this beautiful Friday morning. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I'm Ayo Makide. Business Morning is next.